All right, let me see if I can get this thing to cooperate here a little bit. So let's look at what we're talking about today. So, just a quick recap. There are three different types of economies that you can have. There is what is called a free market. So, let's just go back here real quick. Let me go back one more, and we'll just pop this over here. There's a free market where people, that is consumers, have all the control over supply, availability, price, demand, etc., etc. The controlled market, where there is some degree of government control, and the command market, where the government's in charge of everything. So, first thing to understand when we talk about the free market, there's another word that will usually come up with this, and that word is capitalism. Capitalism is essentially the influence of private property ownership over an economy. I'll write it here. At least I'm trying to write it, so give me a moment. Capitalism is a system that emphasizes private property and ownership as well as free and cooperative exchange. So, when we talk about the free market, we are talking about capitalism. And again, if we're talking about Adam Smith, he is the father of market economics as well as the father of capitalism. Now, an absolute free market cannot exist. And that's because no matter what, the minute there is any type of government regulation, an absolute free market is no longer a reality. So even things like, for example, patent laws that protect people from having their ideas stolen or used without their permission or without compensation, patent laws, copyright laws on written or performed materials, the minute that these laws are in place, even though they are designed to protect the entrepreneurs who created them, these laws automatically nullify the existence of an absolute free market. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just pointing that out that a free market in the truest sense cannot exist. So when we talk about free market, we are in actuality talking about some degree of a controlled market. We all want certain types of government regulation. You want to know that the food you're buying is what it says it is. You want to know that the medicine you're picking up does what it's supposed to do. You want to know that if you invent something, that your product is protected as your property by law. Um, the absolute best situation that we can look for is a government that emphasizes, let me just switch colors here, that really emphasizes this concept here of laissez faire. That is the idea. Sorry, I blotted everything out there. The idea that government is as hands off as possible. Okay. So, what you want is a controlled market with minimal, and I mean minimal, government involvement. So, the United States is a controlled market. We tend to drift more towards free market principles than towards the command market aspect. Now, um, so if we're looking politically, free market is much more of a right leaning concept, command market is more of a left leaning concept. So the controlled market is a centrist concept that either drifts a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, depending on how things are. And there may be aspects of the market that are one way or the other. Now, it's important to understand then that market economics is not a political philosophy. It is an economic approach. It is not like exclusive to one party or the other. It is how it is that the economy is run exclusive of political systems. The fact that China is a controlled market leaning far more to the left is an indication that economically China is a little bit of a different animal than it is politically, although it is drifting more and more back towards the command market. They once were using very new and interesting ways of being a command market. AI and some other things have been really beneficial for China's command market economy. There are two great enemies of the free market. One is obviously Marxism in the form of communism or socialism. And maybe the easiest way to explain this is imagining that there's an old economic cliche called the two cow theory. So in capitalism, you have two cows. You sell one cow and you buy a bull. The daddy bull and the mommy cow have babies, which you then sell off to everybody else at a profit, making money off of the children or the offspring of the mommy and daddy cow, and living a good life while everybody benefits from your selling off of the cattle. That's traditional capitalism. Marxism, communism is where you have two cows, the government takes both of them and then gives you the milk and cheese that it thinks that you need. Socialism works like this. You have two cows. Your neighbor has no cows. You should give your neighbor one of your cows. If you don't want to because they're yours, the government takes one of them away and gives it to your neighbor to make things fair. That's how socialism was. What's crony capitalism? You have two cows. One of your cows is puny and sickly and doesn't really produce much milk. The government pays you and subsidizes you to make up for what that cow is not doing. That's crony capitalism. A crony is it's an old-fashioned way of saying a friend, and specifically, the context of this is it's a sketchy or sus friend. Crony capitalism is when the government is your sketchy or sus friend. Now, all of you probably have a sketchy or sus friend. Heck, some of you might be the sketchy or sus friend. But crony capitalism is the idea that the government somehow either gives you special privileges or supports you somehow or another through subsidies, which are payments or low-cost loans or business contracts that benefit you that other people don't have access to. So I posted two videos. One explains how free market capitalism works. The other one explains how crony capitalism works. Now, let's just look at a big overview, like the 10,000-foot view of what we're talking about here. In 1850, so we're talking about before the Civil War, oil was $1 a gallon. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure most of your parents and me was super happy to see oil at $1 a gallon. That ain't happening. More interestingly, by the 1880s, 30 years later, oil had dropped 92% to 8 cents a gallon. Another industry, steel. In the 1850s, steel was $50 a ton. 30 years later, in the 1880s, it had dropped 84% to $8 a ton. Why? Steel and oil are two examples of an industry that benefits from private entrepreneurship. That is where the people involved with it used their own money or money that they got from banks through loans or money they got from family or friends through loans or investment in order to innovate and create new access and markets. The people who do this, these private entrepreneurs who do this, are known as market entrepreneurs. This term, by the way, comes from a professor at Hillsdale named Bert Folsom, not me. Market entrepreneurs utilize the free market. With their efforts, goods become cheaper, they are more accessible, they are done more efficiently, and there's competition allowing things to be fair. So interestingly enough, when we look at this, you would just think like, holy cow, I mean, there's no money in this anymore. You lost 92%, this lost 84%. On the contrary, steel companies were making more money in the 1880s, and oil companies were making more money in the 1880s. Why? Because they had found more efficient, cheaper ways to do this, making them more available to everybody. And by being more available, they sold more, which then increased their profits. This is how the market works. This is how market entrepreneurs are successful. They expand the pool of people who are able to buy their products or services and thereby make more money doing so. Now, on the other side, when the government is involved with the market, when the government gives you your loans or gives you special favors or special status, there are major problems. The people, these entrepreneurs who use government money or government status or government privileges or government contracts for their jobs, are political entrepreneurs. They are businessmen who benefit from the political environment and through the government's direct investment in their company, either in the form of loans or special status. This is crony capitalism. Crony capitalism leads to failed businesses. Why? Because the people involved don't care if the business fails. They've gotten money from the government that the government has generally overpaid for. And because the government is your client, it restricts the access that you have to the stuff the government's buying because, quite frankly, the companies don't care if you get it or not. They're selling it to the government. It leads to corruption. The government overspends. This money becomes very hard to keep track of sometimes and is paid out in the form of vast bonuses to the political entrepreneurs and their connections who are involved with it. Additionally, many times these political entrepreneurs cycle the money back to politicians in the form of loans, but basically campaign donations or bribes to get what they want. Not to mention all of the perks and bonuses that companies provide to politicians for political entrepreneurship support. It also prevents competition. When the government favors one business over the other, it's very hard for other businesses to compete because the government will overpay and allowing that business to make more money than anybody else. This has been present in the aerospace defense industry. This is one reason why SpaceX is such a huge thing because Elon Musk is not like taking government money, he's competing with the government. And if you look at situations or companies like Boeing that's competing with SpaceX or Virgin Airspace, um, Boeing are the people who stranded those poor astronauts up at the International Space Station because the Boeing Starliner can't get back to pick them up. They got to wait. SpaceX is more than happy to fill that void. So the other thing is that all of these lead eventually to failure, higher costs, less access to services, loads of corruption, and no competition. So watch the two videos and then be prepared, like when we talk about this, to know the difference between these two. Okay. And we're going to look at some specific examples of market entrepreneurs and the success that they have, both in our textbook and in some little activities you guys will be doing. Okay. Peace and love.